There we go. Welcome back.
Here we go.
We are recording. So, welcome back to Live with Jane and Jody. It is Wednesday. I was going to use it. Wednesday, April 15th. It's tax day. Oh, that's funny.
Ooh,
Everybody got your stuff in
yeah.
the mail or filed electronically, and you are done. Anyhow, thank you for joining us today for a great conversation with one of our favorite alum from Sonoran University. I think it was SCNM when she graduated, but we'll learn more about
Yes, too. Yeah. I
couple of
think,
things. Please feel free to turn on your cameras, join in and chat, use the chat feature, ask questions throughout the day. Number one point, I am recording the session so that we can post it later for others that aren't able to join us. But we hold these sessions for you guys, anybody that's able to be here. We want to hear your questions. We want you to engage with the alumni and hear their
mhm.
stories or dive deeper into whatever comes to mind for you. So please feel free to participate. We understand the awkwardness of Zoom, and that's why we'll keep an eye on the chat feature as well. So you can drop your questions in there. We might hit you back and ask more detail in your questions too. So appreciate your
Yeah.
participation. For those of you that don't know, I am Jane Voorhees, one of the admissions representatives here, mostly helping the candidates whose last names are M through Z, get you through that interview process and really ready for enrollment here and joining our community. So through this process, it's just opening your mind to what's possible, what journey others have been on, so you can see yourself here soon as well. Um, Pardon me, I've been a part of Sonoran University originally since 2007. So I've been here when it was STNM. I got to sneak off on a fun adventure around the Super Bowl and concerts and events like that. And fortunately, I've been back here now since 2019. Lucky to be a part of this admissions team with my favorite person at Sonoran University, Jody Durham.
Mhm.
Thanks for being here, everybody. Go ahead, Jody.
Good. Good afternoon, everybody. So, like Jane said, I am Jody Durham. So, I actually work with the beginning of the alphabet. So, A through L, you would be working with me. But I do the same thing Jane does as far as get you ready for this program. Absolutely love what I do. So excited when Jane came back on board with Sonoran or SCNM because we did so well together as a team back in the day. So I've actually been with Sonoran. This will be my 20th year. So I started Sonoran in 2006. So it's been fantastic. I've seen the school grow. I've seen changes. I've seen curriculum changes. I don't want to say I've seen it all because I haven't, but I've seen some amazing alumni go across that stage graduation. So it's been an absolute honor being here at Sonoran. So originally from South Bend, Indiana, I've actually been out here for, I was looking at this today, 24 years. So absolutely love Arizona. Can't imagine anywhere else I'd rather be. So, like Jane said, this Life with Jane and Jody is for you guys. So please feel free to drop a message in the chat or, you can just unmute yourself and ask a question. I do know Dr. Clark did let us know that she was finishing up with a patient, so she may be a few minutes late. So we want her to give her that time to finish with the patient. So she should be here shortly. So welcome. There she is. Wow, that was perfect timing. Hello.
Hello.
Hmm.
Hopefully I'm not too late.
Awesome. No, not at all. Not at all. So we just let the audience know a little bit about Jane and I. So normally, Dr. Clark, what I do is I share a core value. Of course, a core value is beliefs of our institution. So today I chose we achieve excellence. So by pursuing greatness, setting the bar high and exceeding it through continuous improvement enhancing the university experience through innovation and persistence, and by celebrating accomplishments, achieving with humility and gratitude. So that's my core value for today. We achieve excellence. So awesome.
Good choice. Good choice, Jody. I love that one. And of course,
Mhm.
I'm sure you guys will see that Dr. Clark is a great example of that core value as well. So a little bit about our guest today. She actually is originally from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. So this is kind of cool. I can't wait to hear her journey. She graduated from Vancouver, British Columbia, with a degree in kinesiology. So that's very common in the ND prerequisite. We see that a lot. I love it. Sports medicine, physical medicine. I love it. So then graduated from Sonoran University in 2022. So love to hear that transition from the cold weather back into Arizona. I believe she's got a great practice right here in Tempe, Arizona. So I think she got addicted to the heat down here, the nice and warm weather. So hobbies include road cycling, exploring new coffee shops, and traveling. So welcome, Dr. Clark. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be
yeah,
here.
awesome. And I did have the pleasure of working with Dr. Clark from the beginning. So awesome, awesome.
So
So
way
Dr.
back.
Clark, I'm just going to dig right into the questions. Of course, we've asked the audience to ask questions of their own. They can drop them in the chat or unmute themselves and we have a conversation. So tell us about your story. What brought you to naturopathic medicine? How'd you get here?
Yeah. I think my story is maybe similar to what other naturopathic doctors experience. So a lot of it stemmed from my own experience with a naturopathic doctor way back when I was having some of my own health concerns. And I'm very fortunate to have parents that were just open to different approaches and a little bit more naturally inclined and more intuitive just with our health as children growing up. And so I had a naturopathic doctor in my hometown that my mom brought me to. And I knew I wanted to do medicine at that point. I was in high school and that was really what I was focused on. I was like getting ready to go into some sort of pre-med track. And it wasn't until I saw a naturopathic doctor that I was like, oh, this is how I want to do medicine. Like this totally clicks for me. I just loved that I had an hour and a half of her time, which I thought was incredible. I didn't feel rushed. I wasn't like stumbling on my words trying to fit everything in. I really felt heard and listened to. And I just appreciated that she had a different perspective than what I had experienced from other providers I had seen. And so for me, that was really a like aha moment of like, oh, this is a way in which I can practice healthcare and I can bring medicine to others. Because I loved how that visit felt. And I wanted to replicate that moving forward. So that just kind of helped me hone in on pursuing naturopathic medicine. And then what ultimately brought me to Arizona was just in pursuit of where's the best place to learn this.
Yeah.
And I fortunately there was a school closer to me just outside of Vancouver, British Columbia. It's now another branch of CCNM. It used to be the Boucher Institute, if anyone heard it as Boucher in the past, but now it's just another branch of CCNM. I had applied there and to Sonoran. Those were the two choices of places I was willing to move, in all honesty. So it's like, this is where I'm going to hone in. A lot of what made Sonoran stand out was a few things. Our scope of practice in Arizona is amazing. I like that I essentially get to practice as a primary care provider, even though by the state we're not necessarily deemed that. I just love that I have that scope of practice. I'm not limited by what I can do. I'm only limited by what my brain maybe doesn't know in the moment. So I loved that that was an option for me of being in Arizona. I also loved just the school, the campus itself, as we can beautifully see behind you, Jody. That's a perfect depiction of the inside. It's a beautiful place to learn. And I can't say that I was looking forward to the heat. I can't say that that's what motivated me to move. Obviously, I'm coming up on 8 years of living here now, so it hasn't been a reason to leave yet. But I have certainly enjoyed my time, and the school really stood out just for what I was able to learn in the sense of acupuncture, having the botanical medicine garden on campus, having the cadaver lab. I think those are really, really incredible tools that not a lot of the other schools offered that allowed me to learn as much as possible. My kind of mental framework was if I'm going to do this, I want to get the most out of it as possible. And I want to go to the school that's going to offer me the largest opportunity to learn as much as possible. I'd rather learn too much and then not be able to practice with some of those tools in some states or back home, rather than not learning it and wishing that I did, or having to do additional education afterwards. I wanted like a one and done, not that I would think of schooling as a one and done. It was a long and wonderful 4 years, but that was really my approach. So that's really what brought me to Arizona, and what's kept me here is enjoying where I practice now, and in all honesty, marrying an American that made that available to stay.
Nice, nice,
Oh,
nice,
always a
nice.
love story in
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Nice, yeah. You're
Yeah.
in with Dr. Bishop, correct? In
No,
Mesa?
I'm at Protea Medical Center with Dr. Brendan
Dr.
McCarthy.
McCarthy, that's
Yes.
right. Okay, okay. Very good, very good. Fantastic. What a role model he is.
Yeah.
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 Wow, wow, fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. Because he graduated, gosh, wow, even
Long,
10 years
yeah,
before you. Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
yeah,
Another incredible alum. Now, I'm just curious
yeah.
a little bit. I want to dive a little bit deeper. I mean, you said it so well and eloquently, like how broad the scope is here, and you wanted to get the biggest bang for your buck. Just in a brief comparison, what is it that you did get here that you didn't get at, wouldn't have gotten at Boucher? Do you know off the top of your head, like what was
Yeah.
not included in their
At least
curriculum?
at the time, and maybe it's different now, but at the time, which I know is a few years ago now, but at the time, acupuncture wasn't included. They didn't have a cadaver lab. They did a weekend
Wow.
trip to NUNM where they did kind of like a cadaver, I would call it a crash course, if you will. And not that I was excited for cadaver lab in all honesty, but what I learned now, having gone through it, I wouldn't trade for the world. I think it's so incredible to have that like true 3D visualization. And when I was going through school, we were the ones actually dissecting as well too, which I think was a really interesting and amazing experience. So those were two big things. And then also IV therapy wasn't included in the school. Again, at that time, trying to think if there's any, and those were certainly a few. And then the other piece is my focus now is different than what I had originally intended, or one of my original intentions, which is regenerative medicine. And so we have the Neil Reardon Center for Regenerative Medicine at the school, and just knowing that I could learn those types of therapeutics and do something more hands-on day to day that they didn't do or didn't offer, at least at the school back in Vancouver. Those were at least a few touch points for me that, you know, really differentiated my options.
Thank you for sharing.
Wow.
I always kind of wonder how different is it? So
yeah.
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 Good stuff. So gosh, now you've answered like 8 of our questions all in one. That was so beautiful. All right, guys, on the call, remember, you're here for questions as well. So let's talk about school. So you selected Sonoran, or at the time STNM. Oh, and you graduated in 2022, so you had to make it through COVID at some point. Okay.
And
So let's talk about that. Was the program as hard as we thought it was going to be?
The program was more difficult than I thought it was going to be.
Wow.
I don't think.
Nice. Okay.
I've always been someone that was like, I can do hard things. I was excited about it. There was no part of me that was like, this is going to be an easy breezy 4 years at all. But I don't think I really appreciated how difficult and just demanding medical school can be. And I think we get told like, oh, it's different type of medicine. Yes, but I like to frame it as medicine is still medicine and disease is still disease. And so we're still learning pathology and physiology as you would in any other medical school. And we still are learning the standard of care treatment with the pharmaceutical agents, which is amazing. But then we're also learning the botanical medicine and the acupuncture and the IV therapy. So it's like we just kind of layer on top. So it's like in the clinical nutrition, it's like we're just going even beyond that, which I was so excited for, but I don't think I understood the rigor that would be included in that. And so one thing I always say to people that are interested in this is like, know that that's where your heart is, because I think it's the passion that gets you through those tougher times, and just having a really wonderful community, which I know Sonoran does such a great job at building and facilitating, is when you have your like group, your network, the people that you can rely on and lean on, because you need that. In all honesty, you do. This schooling, and I don't think anyone will lie to you. It takes a lot. It takes a lot of mental effort. It's a lot of time. That's not to say you don't have time for things, but it just takes a lot. And so I don't think I fully appreciated that until I was in it. And now looking back, I'm like, that was awesome. Like, heck yeah, that I did that. That's amazing. I'm proud of
Yeah.
myself
Yeah.
for getting through it. I wouldn't
Hmm.
change it, but I'm definitely someone that I feel strongly that it's important, I think, that you know what you're getting in for and that you're mentally prepared for that to the best of your ability, and that you're just ready that there's going to be challenging times. Like it's a lot, that you're a large course load, but it's worth it in the end. It's just a
Yeah.
lot to go through.
And see, and I think that's like the key word of it being worth it. I know Jane and I talk to our applicants and tell them you're going to learn the same basic sciences as any other doctor learns,
Yeah.
but now you're bringing in all the therapeutics or all of
Mhm.
the naturopathic therapies. So you're really getting double the amount of
Yeah.
knowledge, but in the same amount of time.
Right.
So it's like, yeah. So kudos to every one of you students. I've seen their schedule, I've seen the curriculum, and I'm like, wow.
Yeah. But we do
So
it.
so yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's got to be really tough. What would you have said? So let's talk a little bit more about COVID. Were you 100% hybrid?
Yes, we were
Okay.
hybrid for, I think it was, I don't know if it was it wasn't 2 full years because we were back on campus. It was hybrid probably for closer to a year, maybe 3/4 of a year that we were hybrid for before we were back in person. And certainly that had some of its own challenges, but I was fortunate in that my now husband, we were in the program together. And so we had each other still, even if we weren't
Right.
seeing others, like we still had that really nice network of us going through it together, which was really nice. Um,
Right.
but I don't feel like that I didn't get the education I signed up for because of that. I mean, it was a trying time in the world for everyone, certainly, but I
Mhm.
feel like the school did as great as it could have given the circumstances. And I appreciated that I was still able to be in person when it was safe for clinicals and still get to see patients and continue learning. I think it would have been more difficult for that to have paused or slowed things down and delayed
Mhm.
graduation. And so I'm grateful that
Wow.
it
Yeah, I think that was a trying time for all of us, everybody, you know.
did.
Certainly.
That's when I remember in March of 2019, they said, okay, pack up your stuff, everybody's going home. And I'm like, what? Yeah, I was just like, no, no, but now here we are,
Yeah.
still working from home half the time. So yeah,
Mhm.
awesome,
Well,
awesome.
what would you say was like, COVID aside, was there a killer course? What was the most challenging thing within the curriculum itself? Was it gen med? Was it the anatomy? Was it once you got into clinical and balancing all of it? Like, what would you say was the most challenging portion that you experienced?
Good question. Most challenging for me. Hmm. I actually think the most difficult phase and chunk of time was going through OSCE. So that is an exam or a handful of exams. For those who don't know, it's a really wonderful standardized exam, meaning it's done at traditional medical schools as well. And it's a mix of your understanding of pathology, physiology, and clinical work kind of all in one. I think the preparation and just the execution of that exam was probably, in all honesty, the most difficult time. When I look back at like what really pushed my limits was just being prepared for that exam. And I think part
Mhm.
of it was I didn't want to do poorly and potentially delay myself. And so it was just prepping intentionally. And in that time, we were online. And so a lot of that exam was done like this.
Wow.
And not that there's anything wrong with this, but I think that was just an
Right.
added layer at that time. And
No.
as you can probably tell, I like talking with my hands. And so I was trying to just maneuver life online and in that exam. So I think that period of time, which is in quarter 12, should it still be the same, was probably the most difficult portion and chunk of time that I
Wow.
went through. Aside from that, I can't say there was like one specific course or
Mm,
any other specific period of time. I think it's really, as I kind of mentioned before, just the sum of everything at different
mhm.
stages and phases. And I think um, you learn what your capacity is, and your capacity is so much greater than you give yourself credit for. And I don't think it's until you're tested and stretched a bit that you really start to
Mm.
appreciate, like, I can do and manage a lot more than I thought that I ever could. And I used to do a lot, but I was like, this is a lot, and I'm still managing. And I think that's a really cool experience just from a personal development phase of going through the program, of just learning like, oh, my limits weren't what I thought they were. And I think that was really neat.
Wow. You actually understand yourself and see
Yeah.
how many limits you put on yourself, and can you can you do more than you think you can? So yeah, yeah.
Right.
Do you feel like you had a life outside of school, or like did you go to the movies? Did you go shopping? I mean, I'm sure you did, but
Yeah.
it's
I did. I did, and I made sure of that, to be completely honest
okay.
with you, because
Okay.
and I think you learn to further appreciate that in school as you're learning about like mind body medicine. Is like you have to
Yeah.
practice what you preach. And
Yeah.
I understood I can't pour, a silly saying, but I can't pour from an empty cup, especially when you're transitioning into clinicals, or even just prior to being in clinic. You still have to enjoy this period of life. Like, I wasn't willing to accept that, like, okay, it's 4 years, kind of like shut life out, get through school, and then move on. Like, life still happens. I got
Yeah.
engaged and married while in school. My friends had
Mm.
babies while in school. You miss
Yeah.
things for
Yeah.
loved ones, you travel for other things for loved ones. Like, life still happens, and I wanted
Yeah.
to make sure that I still appreciated and embraced that. So I always, no matter what, from quarter one, I guaranteed myself that there was at least, and I know it may sound silly and not enough, but there was at least one full day every week that I did not do anything related to school. I didn't talk about
Oh,
it. I didn't
no, nice.
study.
Okay.
I just took a full 24-hour period break, even if I had exams the following week. And I felt like that gave me so much peace and
Hmm.
allowed me to not feel guilty during those 24 hours of like, no, this is my rest day. This is my recharge day. And what I choose to do with it, I choose to do with it, whether it's sitting poolside, shopping, going somewhere for a day, whatever
Nice.
it may have been, that was filling my cup at that time. And I felt like that really helped me and that really served me. That tended to be Saturdays, just because then I didn't feel guilty of it being the day immediately preceding school,
Mm,
and I could close
okay.
things out on Friday. So that I found really helpful. But I would definitely say I still felt like I had a life. And I feel like those 2 weeks that you get off in between quarters are so amazing. And I feel like you enjoy them so much more when you're like, okay, I get to like relax and come down from
Yeah.
that previous
Yeah.
quarter. I'm not thinking about next quarter yet. And so I still feel like I got to do, a lot, and honestly, probably more travel then than I even do now. So I do feel like I definitely had a life in school, and I made sure of it. And
Very
I think
nice.
it made a difference.
Very nice. Awesome.
I love the way that you share like the balance. Like you definitely made it a part of how important that was. So thank you
Yeah.
for expressing all of this. This is
Yeah.
such
Yeah.
good juicy and I love these conversations. You and
Mm.
your like all of your experiences of getting married and all of that. Like my next question is, would you do it all over again? But clearly, yes, absolutely. All these amazing things that happened for you along the way that you weren't expecting. Is there anything that you might have done a little bit differently? Oh, and we have a question after that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. To be honest, no, I don't think I would have done anything differently. I feel like I involved myself in the things I wanted to get involved in while I was in school. I did things outside of school, like outside of the clinic, shadowing other doctors. Like I feel like I did it how I wanted to, and looking back, I
Mhm.
don't wish that I had done it differently.
Nice, very good.
Nice. Very nice. Very nice. Before that question, can I ask, do you feel that the school prepared you to go out into a practice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I will say I chose to do a residency following
Okay.
school, and
Okay.
I feel like that really furthered my knowledge and my comfortability with patient care. Not that I felt like I wouldn't have been able to do it, but I want to and do currently. I wanted to specialize, and my focus is endocrinology, so just any organ in the body that produces
Interesting.
hormones. And so I did my residency in endocrinology just to further expand on that area of expertise. And because of that desire to specialize, I felt like that residency really helped set me up. Again, not that I couldn't have just from the program itself, but I wanted to be really good at a few things rather than more of a generalist at a whole host of things. And I think with that in mind, the residency is so helpful, especially within our field now where we have different board certifications, which one of them is a naturopathic endocrinologist, which I'm currently kind of gearing up towards of getting ready for what that looks like exam wise. So that's exciting. But so yes, and then to specialize, I do think the residencies provide tremendous value.
Very nice. Very nice.
Good question. Awesome. So
this question.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was going to read out loud, but I'm glad you can see the chat. So, did you have worries about financial investment as well and career stability with making enough money to potentially make sure you paid off your loans? Thank you, Allie, for asking the question.
Yeah, great question. Definitely not a small investment financially, so I can certainly appreciate the concern there. I will be honest, and I was in a fortunate state where, well, two things. One, a little bit different coming from Canada, because I had to convert every month or every quarter and paying for school. So I was only able to get Canadian student loans, which meant with the conversion, that money didn't go as far in the States, just because of the dollar to dollar conversion is perfect, but that's okay. I knew that prior to signing. That wasn't new news to me. I anticipated that. I was fortunate in that the discrepancy was something my family was able to support, meaning my parents at the time. So that helped relieve a little bit of that financial burden, although the student loans are certainly mine to keep and am currently paying off. Initially, I can't say I had a perfect plan of whether I was wanting to immediately start my own practice or join another practice. I knew that I wanted to at least get through residency prior to exploring that. And so with that in mind, I will be honest, in residencies, traditionally speaking, aren't wonderful pay. I will just be very blunt in saying that. Was I able to make student loan payments? Absolutely. Was it a fabulous life? Absolutely not. And that's okay. I anticipated that. And I do think that's something to have in mind because that is something that can have an impact on your ability of paying student loans back. Moving forward in our field, I do and can still see a variety of different opportunities that have a variety of different pay options. I feel very fortunate with where I'm at now in the compensation. I feel like meets and or exceeds where I would like to be and is comparable to what allopathic providers take, which is wonderful. I will say that that maybe isn't always the norm in our field. I think there's a variety of opportunities, but I do also think some people come into this space with a desire and intention to start their own practice, which I think is incredible too. Of course, there's some financial burdens in getting that up and running, but I do have some really close friends and colleagues that have gone that route that have done well for themselves financially. So I do in this moment, yes, feel like I do have career stability. I certainly do make and exceed what I'm wanting compensation wise, which I'm very grateful for. And clinical part aside, I do also have some colleagues that have taken their degree other places, meaning they work for larger supplement companies as their director of science. And so they are doing something a little bit different, but in that case, they also still feel like they have, career stability and just using their degree in a slightly different way. So I'm hoping that answers the question, Allison, but if not, please feel free to message again and I can further that. You're welcome.
Stop. For sure, yeah. Let's see, Jody. You just mentioned residency, and that's actually what was next on our list was, you did choose to do that. And I love how you knew what type of residency, or how did you even find a specific residency now that you brought that up?
Right.
There are through the residency portal, there are mostly general residencies, just meaning it's kind of like general medicine, so more primary care, you'll see a bit of everything. But there's certainly a handful that are geared towards helping set you up for board certification. So there are some that are focused for oncology, which is one of our board certifications. I don't know if there's a pediatric focused residency at this time, but that is another board certification. There is a residency for regenerative medicine. I think more are coming about, which is great. Not that that's currently a board certification, but potentially in the future. I do believe there are some that are gearing up for the gastroenterology board certification, and then there's a few for endocrinology as well. And the difference between them is just the patient load in that specific area. So for an endocrinology focused residency, you're going to have a 60% patient load in the field of endocrinology. So it's not that I never and didn't see other types of patients or treat other things, but it's just that the majority was focused on endocrinology. And again, it's really just to help further your level of expertise in that specific area.
Wow. Interesting.
The nature cure. Did you have honors tracks when you were here? Did you do honors tracks? I don't know where that just came from.
No, yeah.
We did have honors tracks. They paused a little bit during COVID, so I didn't end up pursuing any of them. When I was at the school, and I don't know if she's still up and running, my fingers crossed. So, but I did start the endocrinology club at the school years ago when I was a student. I'm hopeful that she's still around. The goal of that was to help potentially maybe create an honors track in the future so that if people were interested in pursuing that, they could learn more. I haven't heard from the endocrinology club in a while. I was in contact with them for a little bit, but I'm hopeful that's still kicking.
That the clubs too. All right, I've lost track of our questions once again.
No.
What do we got? So the residency definitely drove your focus, your interest, or helped you hone in. You're closer and closer. When do you anticipate you'll be able to apply for that certification?
So I was eligible as of October last year. The only reason I didn't then is I was pregnant then and just different focus. So now that I'm back from my maternity leave, back in action, that is on my docket now. So every board certification is different, but for the endocrinology one, you either have to do 2 years of an endocrinology focused residency or 1 year of an endocrinology focused residency and then 2 additional years in practice that are again majority endocrinology patients. So I've met all said criteria and just it's on my docket of things to do.
Fantastic. Wow.
Yeah, now we can talk about Dr. Protea, Dr. McCarthy, the types of patients you see there. Let's go into that. Like, so that whole clinic is primarily focused on endocrinology as well under Dr. McCarthy?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So Protea Medical Center, we're in Tempe, Arizona, so not too far from the school, actually. We recently moved into this building in about, it'll be coming up on 2 years actually in October that we've been here. We were just in Chandler before, so now we're in Tempe. Beautiful space. It's really nice. We're about 25,000 square feet is our current clinic. So it's just nice and big. She's beautiful. Now you can see from the whiteboard behind me, but it's a really nice space. If there's any prospective students or if anyone's local here and you're curious to come see the clinic, please send a message. I'm happy to share my contact because I'm happy to show people around because I think it's a nice space to see. Nonetheless, I've been with Protea almost 3 years now. We're coming up on 3 years of practicing here. Got connected when they were hiring and my residency was ending. And I have one colleague who's here. We started the program together. He graduated just after me, but he had been here already. And then a few of the other docs I knew from just my time throughout school. And so we connected, things were a great match. So again, coming up on 3 years. And yes, patient-wise, I predominantly see all endocrinology focused patients, mostly a lot of hormone replacement therapy. So women of all different ages, including men. So I like to say the different stages of life, whether we're having issues with our menstrual cycles, things like PCOS or thyroid disease, or if we're going through what we call perimenopause, that transition time from when we're cycling before the cycle stops, well, lots of treatment there, and then postmenopausal as well, and then men included. And then my kind of subspecialty of the clinic here is fertility. So I work with couples and the women to help with getting them them pregnant, helping them make healthy families.
Mhm.
So that's kind of my side passion.
Wow.
Me.
Fantastic. Awesome.
Oh,
Where is the office at? Yeah, I was watching, so Dr. McCarthy is a friend of mine on Facebook, and I was watching him going through the building of the building, and I'm like, because you guys used to be right over here by Sprouts,
Yep.
right next door to Sprouts, and that's
Yep.
not very far from me. And I'm
Yep.
like, oh my God, Protea's not here anymore. So where are you guys at now? Because I
Yeah.
would love to come and see his
Yeah,
office.
please do. We're on
Yes.
Elliott Road. Elliott and Kyrene roughly is where we're at.
Okay.
Closer to the
Okay.
10 than we are the 101. And
Okay.
there's 10 of us doctors here now. We have a resident
Dang.
joined us last fall, just as I was about to go on my maternity leave, and we're looking on bringing 2 more residents this year
Wow.
potentially.
fantastic.
Yes.
So
I will definitely reach out to you. I would love to
yeah,
come and see his office because
yeah,
we used to tour Dr. McCarthy's office when he was over here in Chandler.
sure.
So,
Yeah.
so I would love to see his office.
Yeah.
So
I want to go.
awesome.
I want to
I'll
go.
Yeah.
I'll meet you
okay.
for
Yeah.
lunch.
Feel
Yeah.
free.
I'll meet you for
Yeah.
instead of a
Yeah.
live with Jamie and
Yeah.
Jody, we'll do a walk around in the office.
Yeah. I would love to. Yeah. So I'll reach out to you and
Perfect.
we'll set something up. Awesome.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah,
Well,
I got off.
so
Yeah, good.
endocrinology, that's a good, I'm kind of paying attention and I'm loving this. The endocrinology is like the disease or the function that what about the modality? Like, do you use, I thought of nature cure as like, well, water is so powerful. You're flushing, you're doing whatever. And I'm not a doctor, everybody. So is there a modality? Do you use a lot of Chinese medicine? Do you do physical manipulation? Like, what are the primary tools that you love the most or that you find yourself using with your patients?
I predominantly use, let's see, I would say of the modalities that we learned in school, like IV therapy is certainly a tool we use relatively frequently here at the clinic. Certainly like nutrition, supplementation approach is a big piece of it. And then not that I'll compare myself to a traditional provider, but otherwise I do a lot of prescription medications because of the hormone replacement therapy. And so while maybe we
Mm,
don't think of that as modality, it certainly is, of course. There, where and when botanical medicine doesn't hit the mark from a symptom standpoint for patients, then the prescriptions, hormone replacement therapy, whether it's estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, those are certainly tools that I use. I anticipated using a lot more Chinese medicine in the past, and it's just not something that I use as frequently. Not that I feel any which way about it, but just not something that I use as much day to day as I thought I would, but that's okay. I have
mm.
wonderful friends that I refer to for acupuncture, not that I can't do it, but I'm of the mindset I want them to see like the right perfect person for that. And I want them to
Right.
see the person that does it day in and day out rather than me, I wouldn't say fumbling through it, but to that effect. So
Yeah. Thank you for
Right.
sharing. That's also neat. Earlier, you mentioned your first
Let's
ever
see.
visit was you were loved that it was an hour and a half. And so is that your commitment to your patients? Like how much time do you spend with each of your patients? Tell us about those appointments. Sorry, Jody, I
yeah.
totally cut you off.
No, you go right ahead. Was what I was going to ask as
The
well.
awkwardness of Zoom. Sorry.
For new patient appointments, those are generally an hour long. So we have an hour blocked on the schedule. And then generally that first appointment after that, which we kind of call like their initial lab review or extended lab review, where we're doing maybe a little bit more comprehensive blood work at that first visit. So we just want to have more time to review everything. That's also an hour
Mhm.
long. And then otherwise, most appointments are somewhere between 30 to 45 minutes in between. So I would say at most an hour. Occasionally there'll be an hour and a half appointment, but somewhere between like 45 minutes to an hour is most common of the time I'm spending with patients.
Mhm.
Very nice. Very nice.
Mhm.
Quick question I had that I'm just curious. So I'm assuming naturopathic medicine is fantastic, but do you have good relationships with traditional medical doctors to where if naturopathic medicine just isn't doing what it's supposed to do, that, you know, you refer to an allopathic doctor or an osteopathic doctor? You have good
Yeah,
relationships?
absolutely. Especially for specialists. So if
Okay.
things coming up and something looks a little off in their blood, we have great hematologists that we refer out to. If we
Nice.
have them do their colonoscopies, then we refer out
Okay.
to wonderful gastroenterologists, things that are
Okay.
outside of our scope, and rightfully so. We definitely have a
Mhm.
really great referral network that we've built that we trust sending patients to, not that we shouldn't
Very
otherwise,
nice.
but just that we've got good rapport back from, which I think is helpful. Because for a lot of patients, we're kind of their first go-to or their first stop, and they may have, for a variety of reasons, develop some hesitancy to seeing some other traditional providers. And I think we can help re-warm up that conversation, because some of those, more standard of care exams are pertinent and helpful for their health. And so if we can help
Right.
pass them off to someone that we know they'll have a good experience with, then that's certainly something that we do. So yeah, absolutely. We definitely do have a good referral network that we send
Yeah.
patients to.
And I think that's so important. I mean, where you all have one goal, and that is that patient, so
Mhm.
no matter who does what, you still
Yeah,
have that one goal to make that patient better,
exactly. And I think it
Yeah.
helps with our perception in the traditional field of, I think
Hmm.
sometimes there's a misunderstanding that just because I'm an
Hmm.
empathic doctor, I won't ever prescribe or use medication.
Right.
That's absolutely
Right.
not the case. There's a time and place for everything. And
Yep.
as I say to a lot of my patients, I prescribe something pretty much every single day that I treat, whether it's a thyroid medication that I'm doing for a patient, or a testosterone prescription, or a one-time antibiotic for a urinary tract infection. Like,
Mhm.
those are all things within our scope
Hmm.
that we
Hmm.
utilize if and when appropriate. We have the necessary conversations with patients, but we're definitely not an anti-medicine, anti-pharmaceutical field. And I think at least my approach has been to really marry the two, because I think, as I mentioned, time and place for everything. And I think because of the depth that we go in school, we can recognize that this medication works wonderfully here, but it does deplete these things, these nutrients. So not only will
Right.
I utilize this for these reasons, this is how I'm going to monitor it. And then this is how I'm going to make sure that I'm not just perfectly depleting you of all the B vitamins that you need. So I
Right.
think we can do a really beautiful job of mirroring things. And I think patients really appreciate that, of just having more time to have a better understanding of what they're taking and why, and then also knowing the kind of safety precautions or the extra steps that we're taking as naturopathic providers, just to look at it through a different lens. And rather than just, throwing a medication at them, we're having conversations of,
Right.
this is the why, and this is the lifestyle things that you can do in addition to it. So
Mhm.
I love that our field gives us the opportunity to be in that position, which I think is really great.
Right. Right. I think that's important.
Survey is
Absolutely.
one of my favorite, right? Like, I love that
Yes. Yes.
relationship that
Yes.
you have with your patients and explaining to
Yeah.
them why this is happening and the simple things they can do differently. So I love it.
Yeah.
Very cool. We asked
Yep.
earlier of life outside of school. You also mentioned you're recently a new mom. Like, do you have
Yeah.
balance in your life? Like, how do you feel? Or is Dr. McCarthy working you 6 days a week? What's your schedule
12
like?
hours a day.
Yeah, 17-hour day. No. No, I feel so grateful for this practice and this position. And even really in residency, I felt like I had balance. I'm grateful for that. I think within our field, just even if it's residency, there's an understanding that you need to take care of you. And I think people
Mhm.
appreciate that. And especially Dr. McCarthy knows that his physicians will bring them their best selves when they are taken care of as an individual. And he certainly goes out of his way to allow for that, which I'm, again, really grateful for. So I am actually back working only 3 days a week in the clinic, which I'm really grateful for. He's provided that flexibility for me as a new mom, as he has for other docs that have gone on maternity leave and returned, which is really wonderful. And that feels great for me, of, learning the new environment that I get to be in as a mom, and just balancing my career and getting to enjoy my wonderful new baby. So that's wonderful. Prior to maternity leave, I was working 4.5 days a week. So nothing absurd either, which I'm again grateful for. I have very busy clinic days, which again, I'm very grateful for. I generally have a pretty full schedule with patients, which is fantastic. If I'm here, I'd rather be busy and helping people, rather than
Right.
twiddling my thumbs and looking at photos of my daughter
Right.
if I'm just missing her. So that's been really great. So I think it's allowed for a really great balance, of just the schedule itself, and just, fitting in that life as a new mom too. So yeah, I'm grateful for that.
The new mom, how old's your baby?
She's 4.5 months.
4.5 months. So you
Oh,
are definitely a
congratulations.
new mom.
Yeah, but she's a good sleeper. So I'm like, if I can sleep, then
Oh,
she sleeps.
that's half the battle right there.
That's great.
Nice, nice, very nice.
All right, guys, on the
So,
call once again. Yeah, Dylan, I see your hand pop up. Thanks for participating. Jump right in.
Yes. Hi. I'm curious, Dr. Clark, if insurance plays a role in your all's clinic. I'm just curious I know alternative therapy sometimes their practices or clinics do not take insurance. I don't know if that attracts or detracts patients.
Yeah, great question. We, as naturopathic doctors, are outside of the insurance model for most states. There are some states that their insurance plans are covering visits with naturopathic doctors. Where insurance comes into play for us, which is kind of nice, is that we can still run blood work through insurance. So just as any other provider would, we can run blood work, labs, imaging, which is great. That can get run through and meet their deductible, so on and so forth. What they're paying out of pocket for is really the time spent with us. And then something like supplementation or some of their prescriptions might be an out-of-pocket cost. So that's where some patients have like HSA or FSA accounts that they'll use those funds for. And I would say hit or miss as to whether that attracts or detracts patients. I find for some, they're happy to be outside of the insurance model. They felt the limitations of that and having limited time with their providers in that insurance model. Others are, wanting to maximize. They're already paying for their insurance. They don't necessarily want to pay an additional, fee or cost to then see a provider. So I'd say hit or miss. More than anything, I find more patients aren't upset about paying that additional cost, in all honesty. I very rarely hear that concern from patients. And I think also because once I get rolling with a patient, I'm seeing them maybe 3 times a year, maybe twice a year if things are going well and consistent. So it's not like a huge continuous cost, of course, depending on the kind of care that you're offering. So yes, insurance for some things, but the visit cost is really that out-of-pocket cost. Hopefully that answered your question.
Thank you for jumping in, Dylan. I was just going to remind everybody on the call, it looks like we're down to about 13 minutes. So if you think of any questions, throw them in the chat there. And again, Allison, thank you so much for sharing and for your nice words. I don't know if you can see the chat there, but that was really nice.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Allison.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I think looking back at like it's so silly, my younger self, I think I was like so dedicated and focused on school, but then when I realized like life still happens and life can still happen, and you allow yourself to sink into that you like, it's so important that you still enjoy those 4 years. So important. And again, I met my now husband. We now have a baby, which is we're a little Sonoran love story, if you will. Not that that's always what happens. I think that's Sonoran school. It just worked out that way for us. But you definitely can still have a life and a family too. And there are absolutely clinics, whether you start your own or work for someone, that want to support that, especially for us as females. A lot of us are going through this during our more fertile years, if you will. And so that's something that's probably, if it's not on your mind, maybe. So I can definitely understand having that concern, but I hopefully am a testament that that is definitely something you can achieve, of having it all somewhat.
Well said. Well said. Very good. Very good. So, what do you see in 5 years? Like, do you ever see you and your husband starting your own family practice and kind of working together? Or I don't know, I'm just making things up now. What do you see in 5 years?
Well, one thing I will say, I'm very fortunate that my husband and I get to work together here.
Oh, he's already there at Protea as well.
Here, I already poached him.
Very nice.
His focus is in orthobiologics, so he does regenerative medicine injections as alternatives to pain. So kind of really what the Neo Reardon Center does at the school, he does and brought to the practice here. So his is Protea Center is kind of like a practice within a practice. In 5 years, great question. I think we're both in the state of just like having an open mind. We're happy here. Things are going well. I don't anticipate that changing, but we're also open and excited about the potential opportunity of if expanding into our own space ever makes sense, then that's definitely, on the radar. But it's also kind of nice to not have those business headaches yourself of like getting to show up and just be a doctor.
Sure.
I appreciate that perspective as well. So an open mind. So I can't say I have like one set vision in 5 years. I definitely didn't think I'd still be in Arizona 8 years later. So that's where I'm like, years ago, I was like, okay, I can do 4 years in Arizona and then I can get out of there. But here I am
You're still
now,
here.
baby, so
Yeah.
still here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe my gauge on where I should or could be, I've released that of just being open to what life allows.
Yeah.
Fun.
And
Beautiful.
also having Dr. McCarthy, right next to you with all
Yep.
his experience. And,
Yep.
I mean, I'm not sure when he graduated, but he's been in practice for a while
Yeah,
and
because
he's
Protea,
ran a successful practice.
yes,
So
for
very knowledgeable man.
24 years, Protea Medical Center has been a clinic.
24 years.
24
Yeah.
years, I think.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he's obviously
So, yeah.
beyond that. So yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
So to have
Very
him
cool.
to bounce ideas off of, or what do you think about this? Or what if I did this? Fantastic.
Yeah,
What
it's really
awesome.
great.
Yeah.
And I think it's nice
Yeah.
working with 10 other or 9 other doctors, me being the 10th.
Yeah.
Is wonderful. We have a communal office, which I'm not in, so I'm not bothering them over at lunch hour. We all have the same lunch hour, which is great. So we're always like bouncing cases off each other. We do ground rounds, we do clinic presentations. So like we do a lot of our own kind of like CMEs, if you will, just keeping up to date with things. So it's just a
Fantastic.
really nice supportive environment. And I saw there was a question in the
Yeah,
chat.
there's another question, I think.
Aubrey, great question. I wouldn't say that opportunities outside of Arizona are harder to find, to be honest. No, when I was applying for residency, there was some really wonderful and honestly attractive options in other states. Some in Washington, Oregon, California were probably more numerous than East Coast, just because we're a little bit more licensed in some of those states than we are at East. Not that that's not the case in the East. The reason I didn't pursue those was just because there wasn't necessarily an option for both myself and my husband, and we didn't want to separate for residency. So that was part of what kept us here, is we both did our own residencies here in Arizona. So no, I wouldn't say those are difficult to find. And I think what's great about Sonoran and just the school is a lot of the alumni have kind of scattered, and there is definitely opportunity to connect with them in other states. So if coming here for school feels attractive, but then going back home or just practicing elsewhere feels more aligned with what you're wanting, I think those opportunities are definitely there. And I do absolutely have colleagues and friends that have traveled to other states all over that are practicing, whether it's Hawaii, California, Washington, North Carolina, other places out in Florida, like a variety of places. So certainly options there. And as pertains to like who stayed, who left, I would definitely say mixed. Probably almost 50-50 of who stayed and then who went to other states. And then I could just roll into another question if that's fine.
Yeah, keep going. This is great.
You're welcome, Audrey. Absolutely. Stephanie, what do I use for treating those? Great question. A mix of things. I would say I am someone from a diagnostic standpoint that's really important to me. So I really like to ensure that we're getting the right diagnosis for the patient. So not necessarily a treatment modality, but just like confirming that the diagnosis is accurate, whether it's PCOS, endometriosis, or something of the sorts. And then from a treatment standpoint, this is where my slight obsession with just like science and standard of care comes in, where I love our naturopathic modalities, and I certainly use them in conjunction with some of the more traditional treatments. Now, I'm not one to throw patients like that necessarily on birth control, which can be the standard of care. I'll utilize something more like bioidentical progesterone if that's pertinent or appropriate for the case, using other herbals or anti-inflammatory agents, looking at the microbiome for things like endometriosis, so doing some specialty testing, and then doing more like supplementation, lifestyle factors. So a variety of things, which I know is kind of like a non-answer, but just in all honesty, again, I'm not prescribing oral contraceptives, which tends to be the standard of care, but I'm also not prescribing anything. I know you didn't mention this, but for instance, in the case of uterine fibroids, there's some newer research on using anastrozole, which is an aromatase inhibitor, which you wouldn't think about for that. That can be really helpful for actually reducing the size of fibroids. So that's where I think I love our field. If I have the opportunity to use those prescription agents when safe and appropriate, and those are always conversations I have with patients. And I like to say to them, I'm there to kind of marry the two with them, but they're always in the driver's seat of that decision. I want to educate them on like, hey, this is what the prescription options can look like. Here's our pros and cons. Here's what the more natural approach can look like from like a botanical medicine and lifestyle factor. We can do a mix of both. We can choose one or the other. And I think school definitely prepares you for having those conversations. And I think the patient feels like there's more buy-in from them when they feel like they get to make the educated decision with you. It's really neat. So
Cool.
I can't say there's always like one
Right.
specific thing that I do for those cases, but it really just depends on the patient, what they're comfortable with and what's best suited based on their blood work too.
A lot of botanical. Do you use much homeopathy?
I do not. No, homeopathy is not something that I tend to use.
Okay. Mhm. Hey, Jane. Good to see you.
James. Oh, yay. You're so welcome, James. Thank you. I appreciate that. Happy to be a resource for you guys. I know when I was deciding and going through application and whatnot, I don't know exactly where you guys are at in that process, but I actually had a fellow Canadian who was a student that I reached out to and got to be connected with. I was a student ambassador when I was at the school as well too. And I think it's just like nice to have that resource of someone that's been through it and is on the other side, especially when you're in the program of like in the grit of it, knowing like, okay, like, but this is what it can look like. Like I can do hard things. I can get through this. And like having the moments with patients where they're telling you changed their life, you did this, you did like, it's just the most rewarding feeling that you're like, okay, this is why I did this. Even if you have a bad day, like there's always somewhere sprinkled in because life is life, someone that you made a huge difference for them. And that is so rewarding and just fulfilling and keeps you going. So I love that. So, thank you, James. That's
And
really
you said it just a few minutes ago, Jane and I are always telling our students, you're not going to have great days every day. You're not going to be like, wow, I had the best day ever.
Yeah.
Just remember your why. Why did you want to do this? Just remember your why. And it seems to bring them back to, okay, this is why. So yeah, absolutely. Very good.
I mean, words of advice, final word. Yeah, any words of wisdom at this point? The folks that will be on this call are anywhere from already admitted and deposited starting in the fall to just discovered us last week, I'm guessing. I'm not sure as I look across the board. So really could be anywhere in this journey. But yeah, what final words of advice do you have?
Words of advice I have is, oh, that's a great question. If you choose to go this path, be excited about all that this will throw at you, whether it's the intensity of school, the rewarding feeling in the future when a patient tells you you quite literally changed their life. Like it's amazing, and there will be difficult days. And that's okay. We don't have to be perfect. I always like to say we call medicine a practice, the practice of medicine, because we're all practicing. Like you are still learning and developing as a physician. I think going this route is just committing to that lifelong learning. I think you need to be open and amendable to change. Medicine changes. And I think what's really beautiful about our field is because we're outside of the insurance model, we can adapt to that change a little bit sooner and differently than maybe the traditional model is because they haven't figured out the billing and the coding for it yet, where we can be like, oh, this is new and upcoming. This is what we can do. This is how we can help you. So I think just be excited about it. And even on the toughest days, as you're saying, remember your why and just know that getting to help someone and improve even a small chunk of time in their life and their health is so incredible because they'll look back on that forever. So I think it's a rewarding field and just know that it's important to embrace all phases of that. And yes, I'm happy I'll put my email in the chat. Just don't put it into spam for me. No, just kidding. You guys are welcome to email me. I don't mind at all. If I can be a resource for you, I'd be happy to.
Maybe we'll coordinate a bus tour and we'll come on over and check out the new clinic. We used to bring the bus to Protea down there in Chandler. So
we'll
definitely come down for a visit.
Yes.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Dr. Clark. This was
Thank
truly
you
just
very much.
enriching and genuine. Just like James said, this was
Yes,
great.
yeah,
So
yeah,
grateful for your
yeah,
time. Thank you. The hour
yes,
goes so fast. Oh, it's
yeah, yeah.
brutal. We want more time.
Very good.
Right. Well, thank you,
All
Jane.
right.
Thank you for having me. And
Thank you
welcome
so
everybody.
much,
Thanks for
dear.
joining. Hopefully it was
Yes,
fruitful. Please reach out to
yes.
me. Use me as a resource. I'm here for you. It's nice to have someone to lean on. So happy to help.
We will be visiting soon.
Perfect.
Yes.
All right,
Okay,
very good.
good. All right.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank
Have
you,
a good
Dr. Clark.
day.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
everybody, for
Bye-bye.
joining us
Thank you,
today.
everybody. Yep.
I think it's going to end here in a moment, but we have somebody else coming up in 1 month's time. Jody, what's Dr.
It is
I
going to be
closed it.
Dr. Ted Suzelis. So I've never met Dr. Suzelis. He's from another ND school. So this will be my first time meeting him. So
All right.
yeah.
Well, this is going to be
Yeah.
fun. All right, guys.
Good.
Thanks for joining us today.
Okay.
We'll see you soon. Bye, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.